misdirection sets the stage to turn the page. At the raising of the curtain, I am hurting and uncertain of the parts we have played. Why must the show go on? I can't say these lines again. Why must the show go on? Must I sing this song again? Fading out of the close-up, everybody's reeling, no concealing. Your beauty is seed stealing. Violins are singing, sunset's waiting, radiating. Your entrance is breathtaking. Why must the show go on? I can't say these lines again. Why must the show go on? Must I sing this song again?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 18 of the Four Wall Sunday Roundtable. My name is Drew Quinones. I am one of the hosts. And sorry if my background's glitching today. My wife binge watched season 1 of the Home Edit show and reorganized, or should I say organized, the entire house, so everything is different now. I am joined once again by my co-host Jeff Kreuter.
Hey,
Jeff, how you doing?
Sorry, I hadn't heard that, so you made me laugh right before you. Thank you.
Yeah, so no more banana leaf background.
No, I'm gonna miss that. You're very branded now, though. I will tell you that. If I had a company, I would do the same thing.
Yeah. So sorry if there's a few glitches in the matrix, but this
Great.
might be.
Hello, everyone. Thanks again for watching. Drew, how is your week? How was your week? How's the family? How's everyone doing?
Everybody's doing good. Kids are doing good. We're a month in, so starting to get some sleep a little bit, I guess you could say.
It's good. It's good.
How about you? Where are you at?
I am coming to you from the lobby of Paper Mill Playhouse. They're still finishing filming a musical that was first performed for an actual live audience a few years ago. And now, like so many things, it will live on the internet. This is actually the first time I turned lights on in 6 months. And I still remember how to do it, so that's a plus. It wasn't weird, I have to say, sitting down like at the tech table, like, oh yeah, I like it on the right or whatever, And I don't know when the next time I'm going to turn lights on again. So, I enjoyed it while it lasted for a few days there. I want to give a quick shout out to the lighting team here at Paper Mill, Drew Kaczynski and Joey Fiola Jr. Thanks as always for the hard work. You guys are amazing. Before we bring our guests on, we want to follow up on something from our Hal Binkley tribute a few weeks ago. There's been a lot of talk about a gobo, and Chad Tiller from Roscoe is here to tell us all about that gobo. Hello, Chad.
Hey, guys. Thanks so much for having me here, Jeff, Drew. It's a pleasure to join you. Yeah, I listened and was a eager participant in following the story of Hal's passing, of course, and then watched you guys do the roundtable with so many of his associates and accomplices, I guess I should say. Yeah. It's great. I first learned of Howell's passing, I happened to be taking that Friday off. And it's not a surprise to anybody that knows me. I was listening to the original cast recording of Parade, which I'm like a musical theater fan. I'm a geek like that. And so I just happened to be listening to it. I was like, I wonder who lit that show. I couldn't remember. So I looked it up on IBDB and saw that it was Howell. And I thought to myself, like, man, the next time I see Howell, I'm gonna tell him how much I loved that show. I saw it when it came through Dallas when I was before I moved to New York, and I really loved that show. Next time I see him, I'll have to tell him how important that show was to me. Sure. And then like 30 minutes later, I saw on Facebook that he had passed away.
Yeah.
So it was clear to me why I decided to tune into that musical that day. Right, there was a power at play. And then, like many of you, I kind of saw these tributes being posted, whether it was from Ryan O'Gara or Jimmy Fettigan, Sean Beach. And then ultimately Jason Thompson, the projection designer, made this collage, if you will, of these, I think 4 or 5 different photos of Howell being viewed through a softly focused gobo. And
do we still have that, Drew? We had, I guess we don't. We used to have that up here.
Yeah, no. I did have the photo, but I do have the go.
Right. So what we ended up doing was, Al Rodella from Four Wall called me on Monday after Hal had passed away, and apparently there had already been a groundswell, grassroots sort of desire to rebrand the pattern. And so this is Roscoe 77760. It's historically been known as Internal Reflections, and now it's been rebranded as Binkley Reflections in his honor. One of the challenges we had to jump over was if you look through, the gobos that Roscoe offers in our standard catalog, a lot of those gobos are designed by existing designers. There's even Joe Mills. Can't even say it. Mills. Help me out. Thank you, Mills. Got caught in my mouth there. Joe designed some patterns there in the book. Jules Fisher designed some patterns there in the book. And this pattern happened to be designed by Dennis Parisi, who, for those listeners who don't know Dennis's name, was a Broadway designer in the 70s and 80s. Best Little Whorehouse in Texas might be the name that everybody remembers. Tally's Folly, 4th of July by Lanford Wilson. These are all shows that Dennis did the original design for. And so Dennis is still living. I have never met Dennis, but certainly we had his contact information, so I reached out to him. And unlike a lot of people in this world, Dennis answered the phone when it rang, and I got to speak with him. I explained to him what we were hoping to do, and he immediately, generously said yes, without even any hesitation at all. Like, yes, let's do it. And he recalled that he met Howell when Howell was first starting out. And he remembered what a compassionate and nice man Howell was. And so he was happy to learn that Howell had used this pattern in so many of his shows. So all of this was just sort of the feel-good hit of the month. And I think it was at Roscoe, it's what we needed to feel good again. With all that's going on in the world, it was nice to do something warm and kind. And, we're just honored to pay this humble tribute to the legacy of Hal Binkley.
Well, that's pretty amazing. Of course, so many people thought of this when we heard of the sad news. It's, one of the first things I thought of. I actually own, I got a box of them from some other show that closed, and I have like 100 of them that I'm not going to use them. So if anyone, first come, first serve, I have 100 Binkley Reflections. Is that what you call it? Howell Reflections?
We'll call it now, yeah.
Binkley Reflections. Come one, come all. They're all yours. I did find, Drew, I found that image of the gobo. I think I put it in there. Can you bring it up?
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't know how to do that.
Yeah, there it is.
There it is. Beautiful.
Yeah, so Jason Thompson put that together, and a lot of folks use that as their profile pic. Even still, it's up there. We saw it on Instagram, we saw it on Facebook, and it just became clear to us what we were in a unique position to do to pay tribute. And I'll tell you, again, this could not have happened without Dennis Parisi. It could not have happened without Howell's widow, Joyce Story. And then Ryan O'Gara, Jason Thompson, Jimmy Fettigan, they all kind of contributed. And I'll even give Al a little bit of credit as well.
You can give Al a lot of credit. He's here.
There we go. And so without the help, I mean, it was not just a Roscoe thing. Internally at Roscoe, I also want to give shout outs to Ann Hunter, my Gobo product manager, and Joel Svensson in my marketing department for helping make it happen. And for those who are interested in seeing some of the photos from Howell's designs, if you go to the Roscoe website, roscoe.com, up in the upper banner, you'll see Spectrum blog. And if you click on that, I think it's the second post down now. It's no longer the newest post. But you'll see the Binkley reflections. And in that blog post, we've got some images of Howell's designs from Come From Away, from Hamilton, from Avenue Q using this pattern. So you can see how he used it. And so you can read more about it there.
Cool. Thanks, Chad.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. See you soon, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye. That is so nice of them. I'm glad they did that. I feel like it had to be done. So I'm glad it was. It's so nice when something has to be done and it is done.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you, Roscoe and Chad, for that, for coming on and telling the audience everything. So we appreciate that.
It's time.
Let's get episode 18, the first Sunday of October. Can you believe that? Jesus.
No, every time you say that, I don't believe it.
I know.
It's amazing. Let's bring on the guests.
Okay.
Bring on the people tuned in to see.
Paule, Constable, was supposed to come on. Unfortunately, she's not able to, so it's going to be 3 lighting designers today. The first is lighting designer Brendan Gray from Gray Matter Visual. Hey, Brendan.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. Brendan.
Thank you so much for joining us. And second is Christien Methot. Hey, Christian.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Christian. Nice to see you.
You too, bro.
And last but not least is UVLD lighting designer Kevin Lawson. Hey, Kevin. How you doing?
Hi, everybody. How you doing?
Kevin.
Hey, Kevin.
Thank you all so much for joining us. Paule does send her regrets. There was something about rain and a car. She will come on the show at some point, and we look forward to having her. But for tonight, it's just us, just the guys.
All right.
Next week we're going to do an all women somehow. We'll figure that out. But Paule does send her regrets, and she'll be on again. We promise.
Okay.
Who's interested? Let's dive right in. So we're all lighting designers. Lighting designers work in so many aspects of the entertainment industry in a wide variety of projects. Brendan, what do you do primarily? Where do you work mostly?
I do a little bit of a lot, which is one of the things that keeps it interesting, whether it's concerts, corporate, trade shows. But I think what the bulk of what I do and I do with this support of a team is, I think, falling under the rubric of special events, whether that's a crazy party for thousands of people or some experiential product thing. But a lot of what doesn't fall into some of the traditional categories of the business, but always still doing enough of those other things to both keep it interesting and inform myself on what's happening in the world.
Cool. Christian, how about you?
Sure. Again, much like Brendan, have found myself doing a lot of different lighting design over the years, different areas. But certainly the bulk of the work is in the corporate meetings, product launches, and opening night ceremonies for sporting events worldwide. And it's, literally it's something new and different every day, which is what's great about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Kevin.
Much like my predecessor there, I also get around a little bit. I do a lot of television still as a lighting director and programmer, and then quite a bit of corporate work as a lighting designer and programmer. So and some other live events here and there, but those are my 2 main.
Cool.
Awesome. All right, Kevin, we'll stick with you on this one. But how did you arrive where you are today, and what was your path?
Well, I started out doing mostly theater, and I had a brief stint where I was talking about this earlier today, where I left to go work at Verilight New York for about a year, and took an office job in search of a steady paycheck and health insurance.
Hey, nothing wrong with that, Kevin. Just kidding.
And then decided that I really didn't like sitting in a desk in an office all day long. And so I left there. But luckily, my connections there led me to a lighting designer, Alan Branton, who needed an assistant. And so I started working with him and kind of grew in my role there to start programming and have, worked with him for over 20 years now, and branched out from there. A few years ago, I started working with Greg Cohen and John Ingram at UVLD, and did events with them, car shows and whatnot. And so they invited me to be part of that team as well. So.
Cool. Awesome. And Brendan, what about you? What was your path?
Yeah, I mean, starting in the theater, I carpooled to high school my freshman year of high school, and if I wanted to ride home, I hung out with the guy who gave me a ride, who hung out with the guys on the gig crew, and I got sucked into the drama of being backstage on shows, and yeah, so just kind of pursued that through college, and then like internships and fellowships, and working my way up through the theater into New York, and then I started doing event work on the side when I was at Arena Stage, actually, in Washington. Chris Luton, who's the master electrician there, had introduced me to the guys at Atmosphere Lighting down there. Started doing events, and when I moved to New York, after a while, just decided I really liked the speed and the pace of event work, and that shifted to become my primary focus.
Cool. Awesome. And Christian?
Sure. To mirror the other two, also theater, community theater and dance in middle school and high school in New Haven, Connecticut, mentored by Jamie Burnett, then on to SUNY Purchase to study under Billy Minster and Brian McDevitt, to name a few. Dennis Parisi was in there too. That was nice to hear his name earlier. And then finally to Manhattan, working off and off Broadway, and had the pleasure of assisting Danny Franks on some TV shows. He also has just passed away recently, but that brought me to the mixed sort of mixed world of events and theater, and anything live I was willing to do.
So when you say events, like, can you describe what that is for people who might not know exactly what that means? Because it could be, there's a broad range of what means events, Christian. What's your definition?
So we can take something like Hudson Yards recently opened up a new mall, and they had a huge opening night event. Where thousands of people were brought to the very first night of being able to see the vessel, being able to see the new high-end stores at Hudson Yards. Yeah. They had a huge screen set up. They had we had lighting on all 7 floors of the mall. That's one example.
Got it. Brendan, can you give us an example of an event that you do? When you say events, what does that mean for you?
Yeah,
similar?
It really is all over the place. So everything from I do a lot of major galas, so nonprofit organizations, charities will have their big event for the year. A lot of what I specialize in is when that event features a artist, a big performer, a band, or something like that, and trying to seamlessly integrate all that. But events could also be supporting the fact that we're projecting Candy Crush on a 20-story building and doing a bunch of lighting around that. It's a whole spectrum of stuff. So.
Awesome. Kevin, do you want to add anything to that? Is there another?
I mean, yeah, it's sort of a broad category. I mean, you could put anything in there, like, we'll do the upfront presentations, for advertising for television, any kind of charity event. Usually, if it's not like specifically a corporate event or a televised event, it sort of gets that kind of.
Got it. Yeah. Event. Everything's an event.
Everything's an event.
Mark Krasnow keeps saying that was a fun gig. So I don't know which one of you he's talking to. He's appreciated it.
Kraz thinks all the gigs are fun.
I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
Christian, let's go to you next. What excites you about lighting design? What excites you about what you do?
Sure. certainly our ability to affect mood and emotion with light, and the camaraderie of the work and collaborating to a common goal.
Yeah, great. That's what excites me too. Kevin.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I mean, I think it is that and the shared experience with an audience, whatever that audience happens to be for that particular, genre or event, that, that feeling of being in the room with people and enjoying whatever the talent or, even a case like a car show or something like that, the excitement that comes along with that, and just being a part of that, a facilitator of that.
Cool. Brendan?
Yeah, I mean, to build on what everyone else said, that the collaborative effort of it is actually something that I'm certainly missing right now, which I'm sure we'll get to more. But it is so important about it. But yeah, I mean, the challenges and the benefits of creating within intangible form is just a lot of fun.
Yeah,
and can be challenged with.
And we have Megan McDonald said, "I think I worked with all of you."
Oh, great.
Oh, yeah.
So, Brendan, we'll stick with you. You just mentioned challenges, but what would you say is the hardest part of what you do, and kind of what do you least enjoy, or what's your least favorite part of the lighting design process?
It's the lighting part is the easy part, I think, and I think a lot of art can be. It's the hours and the stresses, especially when you are doing things that are live, and a lot of projects that we all do. Even if there's months of planning, all happen in a day or a week on site, and that can definitely be a challenge over time, and it's definitely something I think to reflect on right now that we have some more time. So, yeah.
And Christian, what would you say is the hardest part?
I was a little split between. There's two different things. My internal joke to myself is that I could do without focusing the lights. But I've found when I do that I'm usually not happy with the outcome. So I usually let that be my job. Of all things on site, that is usually my job. And then the other thing I think that was has sort of ticked me off lately is that although the ability to present 3D renderings has improved amazingly, I don't always feel like the client sees them the same way that I do.
Yeah. I have to say, focusing lights, I'm never more exhausted. That's the most exhausting.
I just don't like doing it. There's nothing.
For 8 hours, being blind by the end of the day.
Yeah.
And starving. Sorry, Kevin, how about you?
I mean, I would preface this by saying that, none of my complaints are enough to make up for the fact that, after being home since March, I would, I'd rather be on the worst gig in the world.
That's right.
Well, maybe the second worst gig in the world. I think like Brendan said, the easiest part of it's lighting. I think the politics, I think also the act of trying to sell yourself and your ideas, that's hard and not really built into my personality. So I think that's the hard.
Yeah, we're all salesmen also. I mean, in addition to being lighting designers, we're selling ourselves. We're businessmen, we're salesmen. We're selling ourselves. We're selling one cue at a time sometimes.
Right.
One cue at a time.
Right.
So for all you young designers. Okay, so this next question, Brendan, let's go to you. So understanding that this might be difficult to answer since it requires a certain amount of introspection, how would you describe your style?
Yeah, it is a hard one, especially working across a lot of different disciplines. I think what I always strive for, and I don't know how much I achieve it, but I hope to, is efficiency, because I think efficiency leads to strong looks and strong designs, and that could be a dozen lights, it could be 600. Just having a tight and cohesive design where everything has a purpose. Just is always a smoother process and tends to produce a stronger, cleaner result.
Great answer, Christian.
Yeah. I think I was trying to say the same thing and called it clean minimalism.
Yeah, sure. I mean, that is a style, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that we've established that all of our gateway drug to this was theater, and I think a certain amount of that comes from that. I mean, we all started with shows that I'm sure had way too few lights for what we needed to work with, and so we learned to be efficient early on.
If they were lights at all.
Yeah, if they were lights at all. Yeah,
Sure.
Tin cans with cords.
Yeah, clip lights and
little lights, little lights on dimmers.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know. Do people do that anymore? I don't know if anyone's watching. People still
no, because now you can buy a color changing LED. It's the next question, actually. Now you can buy a color changing LED for $20 on Amazon.
Right.
So
yeah, we'll get there. We'll get to the color changing LED from Amazon or someone else. No names.
Kids these days.
So speaking theater as a gateway drug, we all use the term collaboration, and I'm curious what that means to you throughout the course of a design project. Who are your closest collaborators? Christian, let's start with you on this one.
Sure. The closest collaborator certainly depends on the project, right? Each one of these kind of different genres that we talk about bouncing around in really means that who the closest collaborator is going to change. But I think that the most consistent thing over those different projects is that the creative team has agreed on the look and feel of the production, and that we are always working together towards that goal. If that means that someone wants to make a lighting recommendation to me, I am certainly interested to hear it, and would hope that if I had a thought for the set or the sound, that it would be expected that I mention it, and that the team and everyone understands that I'm not stepping on toes, that we're just trying to get to the common goal with the least amount of drama.
Yeah, it's hard. People, sometimes people take collaboration the wrong way, but, I can certainly say that where I work, it's always about the end result. I welcome people giving me notes. I don't know. Do I? Yeah, sure. I think I do. Kevin, what do you think?
Well, yeah, just along that same line. I mean, I think that what we do, these events, these productions, is one of the few occupations where everybody in the building is kind of working in the same, toward the same goal, to that same line. You may have different ways to get to it. You may even have different agendas to get to it. But in the end, we're all there to do this show. And so I think that even if it's not the sort of, purest educational collaboration that we, that we hear about, it's still everybody there is trying to get to whatever this thing is that's on at 8 p.m. or, whenever is going to happen. And we'll move in that direction.
Yeah. All hands on deck. In a way. Brendan.
Yeah, I think to build off of what Kevin said, because it's different people, different days, different projects, and I was trying to think of a way to distill it down, and I think a lot of times it's just whoever else cares that day, like whoever else really wants to make the show happen and wants to help push things to the next level. That could be the shader, that could be the gaffer, that could be the production designer, that could be the rigger or the producer, director, but just it's whatever people are really want to not give up until we're done that day.
Cool.
So a few weeks ago, we did an episode with assistant designers. How do you use an assistant, and what do you look for when you're hiring them? Kevin, we'll go to you.
Interesting. I don't get an opportunity to work with assistants that often. Okay. Mostly just because of the sort of one-off nature of a lot of the shows I do. It just doesn't, there's people to draft and all that kind of stuff, but for the most part, we're doing the work ourselves. There have been a couple of long format shows where I've managed to have some interns and assistants and that sort of thing, and it for the most part they're people that are just coming out of college or still in college, and so they're there to get the experience and just soak in as much as they can. So we just try to get them to just be there and listen and ask questions and all that.
And Brendan and Christian, does that apply to both you as well, or do you kind of have...
I think it's interesting that, again, the answer for me is it depends on the project, right? And I certainly do use them, and I think where I have found the most success is that it's been like an organic growth over the years, that they came in maybe as an electrician and then as a programmer, and then once they really have seen my work long enough, and I see how they are with clients long enough, that I can then sort of decide if there's someone that I want to be able to, and maybe it's not quite as specific as a Broadway assistant might be. Maybe it's a little bit more like an associate, because a lot of, if I'm looking for an assistant, I'm looking for someone that I can step away for a day while something's going on, right? And so it's very important to me that there's someone I can leave in front of a client.
Yeah. Kevin, I just want to follow up for one quick second. So when you get a project for UVLD, do you take it from drawing to finished product, or do you have people in the office who do some of those things for you also?
Often people will help with the drafting. But mostly I particularly with the corporate stuff with UVLD, there's a good structure there where we all kind of
you do it. If it's yours, if you get the project, it's your project, and you see it through from beginning to end.
Yeah.
Interesting. Cool. Sorry to interrupt. Brendan, did you have anything to add?
I was just gonna say, so for me, assistants and associates and lighting directors and that whole thing is different. So I really divide it up, or I look at it differently between the pre-pro in the studio and then what happens on site, and the needs and what I look for there can be different. Certainly, there are individuals who can do all of that, and I've had a very talented associate here in the office for the last 5 years. Charlie Winter's out there someplace, hopefully.
I know Charlie Winters.
Sure. He's been great. And then we augment him with other people when there's extra drafting or pre-pro, stuff like that. I think the biggest challenge in the office and the biggest thing I look for, and one of the hardest things to find is because of the volume of projects, is you might have to draft 3 different shows over the course of a day, or just hop back and forth between things. And that's challenging. It's hard for me to do. It's hard for anyone else to do. And then on site, I think to go with what Christian was saying, a lot of times if I have somebody on site, it's not an assistant and like the Broadway or just the traditional theatrical sort of take notes and do things and focus the light. It's a mini me or someone who can go handle another room or something like that. And a lot of times people who I've collaborated with as programmers, step up into that role because they know how the sausage is made and they know how to deal with the clients or the requests that happen.
Yeah, agreed. And if you have an assistant who can program, I mean, that's, for certain things, that's also very helpful. One person can do both. I mean,
still need them doing the assisting on the other shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've also had electricians on the show, and they kind of talked about their relationship with equipment rental companies like a Four Wall, so don't say anything bad. Just kidding. But what is your relationship with equipment rental companies and manufacturers? Kevin?
Well, and this is not an attempt to suck up. You try to use Four Wall as often as possible because what we found, over the years, particularly with with larger fast shows, is that it makes a real difference if the gear works when it comes into the room. I know that's a stupid concept, but it's the amount of time that you lose trying to fix things is the time that you can be using to make the show better. So if you can have a dependable vendor who brings the stuff in that has been teched ahead of time and sends everything you need when you ask for it, that makes a huge difference on site and keeps everybody stress level down and allows us all to be productive, and the good shows.
Yeah. To that end, I think I was talking to Al about this the other day, and I'm not sure how many people remember the Big Apple lights. I know Christian does.
Of course.
So I wanted to get a T-shirt made up that said Big Apple lights on the front and on the back. It worked when it left the shop. Because that was I love them and I use them for so many things. But the amount of times I would call them, it doesn't work. And it worked when it left. Sorry.
That's part of it.
They don't exist anymore, so I'm not disparaging anyone. Christian, what do you think about that?
The relationships are huge, right? I think we are often renting and or selling lights to the end client. So it's all about the relationship, and I can't be gambling on whether they're going to work, right? And the shop prep's important. The electrician working in the shop with the shops, they need to be happy with the shop, right? So that often ends up being the question too, is do you feel comfortable with this rental shop? And I'll often have my electrician vet, if we're thinking about a new shop, we'll vet the shop. But to Kevin's point, 9 times out of 10, we're going to 4-wall because they've proven over the years that it works, right? They're investing in new gear all the time, and they're rolling off the old stuff, and it makes sense. It's just the way to do it.
I'm going to say that we did not ask these people on the show to talk about 4-wall. I would never do that. But
right.
There you go. We didn't talk about this ahead of time. This was not a prerequisite, but
I can count on one hand in the last few years, like the times we haven't done it, and it was almost inevitably overseas. So
right.
We got a comment from Craig Caserta.
There you go. Thank you.
Yeah, there it goes.
Okay, Craig, it worked in the shop. Thanks, Craig.
Yeah.
Brendan, would you like to add anything to that?
I mean, everything that's been said is great. I think to build off of what Christian said, it's a relationship, and ultimately your shop's with another collaborator in the game. And the bar, it should be a low bar that the gear works when it comes out of the shop or comes up on site. Obviously that's sadly not always the case. And sometimes especially when we travel and have to use vendors because of things outside of our control, it can be a real challenge. But a good shop relationship and a good account executive, in which I'm blessed to have actually several at 4-wall. Some of them were 4-wall's kind of acquired a lot of the things I used to deal with. So that was everybody's in one place almost. But yeah, it's a relationship. So they know you got the big show here, the smaller show here. You can work some things out, and just all the back end stuff that always has to happen right. That really matters to the producer, to the production manager, whether it's the trucking, the insurance, the billing. I don't want to have to think about that.
What about your electrician? Do you use someone for everything? How does that work in what you do, Brendan?
I'm lucky that I have a short list of people who make the bulk of the shows happen. And just again, that's the relationship. And that's probably the most important relationship. I wager to a lot of the production managers, that's more important than me at the end of the day, because that's
at the end of the day, that might be true, because if the lights don't turn on, there is no us.
No, so very, very fortunate to have the gaffers or the production electricians and the teams that they bring. It's not just one person; it'll be them. And I know if it's them, they're going to come with their seconds and all of that, who are they're that. Anytime I'm on the job site, I can turn around and see someone I know is a part of that team, and
sure.
Being done will happen. So,
Christian and Kevin, do you want to add anything to that? Do you have a special relationship with an electrician that's
for different? Sure? Yeah. Again, I think very much like Brendan, we have there's 2 or 3 people that are very much the short list, similar with our programmers. And those, that team becomes the consistency, both for myself, right, to be able to have shorthand with them, but also for clients that are at this point very much repeat clients, right? We have jobs, so we have projects that we'll work with the same clients 2, 3, 4 times a year, and for the clients to have the comfort of us all being the same team, makes it that much better when we're there.
Sure. Kevin, anything else?
No, same thing. It's TV, there's a list of gaffers, corporate, there's a list of, master electricians. It just, there's people that do those particular events really, really well. And once you find those people, you use them, and you see the same,
sure.
Same faces over the years.
People have heard me say this before. It's like blood pressure medicine.
Yeah.
Having a great electrician. Just like
that's good.
I walk in the door and I see someone asking me the right questions, and starting by saying, everything's going to be okay, but I have a question.
Right.
I was going to add one more thing to that, and it sort of goes back to the vendor relationship. Years ago, you would get a couple of texts with a vendor, and you didn't really get a lot of say in who they were, and that kind of thing. And so that meant that those people were there working for the vendor as opposed to working for working for you and the show. And there's, sometimes there's a big difference in, in where their accountability is. And so if you can, hire who you want and who you trust, like you said, it lowers your blood pressure, and it also just makes them accountable to you and the production, and not necessarily, outside forces.
That's a great point. I totally agree.
Yeah, I could just throw one more thing on there. I mean, because it is such a repeat and long-term relationship with the people in that position, they're involved pretty early on. I always try to get the electricians at the site survey or the whatever, and if I have some cockamamie idea, I want them to tell me, yeah, we can make that work. Or I would say, this is really, like, we can do it, but, and they're frequently the ones that are going to help push us towards that efficiency, that really good solution.
Yeah, totally. So moving on to something a little different, maybe a little different, well, maybe related. So let's talk about like technology and innovation. And can you tell us what has made your job easier and harder? It's a two-part question. Kevin, let's go to you. What has made your job easier and harder in technology or innovation?
That's a good question. I don't know. I think maybe it's the same. Maybe it's the same thing, and it's basically just elements like previs and rendering and all the rest that allow us to communicate our ideas ahead of time. But it basically creates the same problem that we can often have with a client, which is they don't speak the same language we do, often, and it's hard to communicate those ideas, and so they look at a what is basically a cartoon representation of what we're going to do, and can take it too literally, or want it more. I mean, it's a double-edged sword.
Have you ever showed a customer like a previs or anything, and then it's after they say, "Oh, that's not what I expected," when they see it in real life, or are they able to translate virtual into reality?
I will say that I have not had that experience myself, but as a programmer, I've been in the room when it has happened, and it's it's just not a great It is easier to show them something, obviously, in the full-scale model than it is on
like on the day. There's nothing like on the day. I mean, you can't draw, no matter how hard you try, you really can't draw light.
Exactly. It doesn't feel the same. So,
Christian, what do you think? Easier, harder?
I was able to answer the easy, and I'm having trouble with the harder. I'll start with the easy. And it goes along the same with the previs. I think affordable, portable gaming laptops that can run previs both in the studio and then on site, right? So it buys me some time. And what used to be a huge, a huge rack of computers is now literally a 4-pound gaming machine that tears up the previs programs. So that's been amazing. Harder, I'm not sure. I wasn't able to come up with harder.
Okay. If you do, well, you can always add.
Okay.
Brendan, do you have an easier, harder, or both?
Yeah. So the first part is going to sound a little repetitive to what everyone else is saying. It's the previs, or as I think some of my colleagues have been trying to call it now, just the visualization. It's not we're just
doing it's visualization. That's right.
Programming. It's real content that is hopefully going to translate to the.
That's right.
And to go off of what Christian was saying as well, having the ability to do that on site. Like, how many times are you just waiting for the rig to go in, or the set to go in, or the video screen to work? And that's great time to be doing something. A tool that can go both ways. That is I think just all the cloud communication and collaborative communication tools that we have, whether that's Slack or Dropbox or any of these other different things, is great when you're trying to manage projects with different people and different teams and locations and all that. But the flip side of that, as we've all felt, as all these tools get better, is that the expectation that you're going to look and respond to these things all the time. And how many times you say, "Well, didn't you see the new files in the Dropbox?"
No.
Or the expectation that you're going to be responding to the Slack or whatever the method of communication is. So that's definitely a powerful tool, but a double-edged.
Yeah, that's funny that you say Dropbox. I feel like I was going to say something else, but Dropbox has made my life easier and harder at the same time. It is really hard to navigate. People delete files because still so many people don't understand that if you delete it on your machine, you've deleted it for everyone. You know, tracking that down is always difficult. But I'm gonna actually say, like, LEDs have made my life easier and harder at the same time. It's, you know, having any number of colors at your fingertips is amazing, but also strangely more time consuming. Kevin, how do you handle color and LEDs on site when you don't have to pick all your gel? You don't have to make these decisions ahead of time, or do you? What do you do?
Well, you know, we all come with a little toolbox full of palettes that we like. And, you know, so you sort of start there, and then you can dial, you know, based on seeing an actual object or, you know, seeing, you know, that you just want a little adjustment on a color. So I think it's the idea that we can have an infinite number of colors. You know, we self-edit ourselves down to a selection of, you know, 40 or something like that to start off with, and then go from there.
Christien, how about you? Any way that you deal with color in a special way?
No, I mean, I think I kind of, you know, much like I'm happy not to focus, I was also happy to stop picking gel.
Yeah.
So I think I'm happy to kind of walk on site knowing that we've specified an entirely LED rig at this point, and are very happy in the fact that we can get, that we've chosen fixtures that we know we're happy with the color mixing capabilities of probably something that has more than 3 colors RGB at this point.
Sure.
And now reaching towards the 6 or 7, which is definitely where where you start to really get much more of the gamut.
Yeah.
So no, I found it to be fantastic. I've been happy kind of right from the onset. I mean, the reality is that I probably early on when it was just RGB and we were using color blasts, it was a little limiting, right? They weren't that bright, and I wish I could have gotten some subtle colors in between.
Sure.
But where we are now is outrageous.
But they were fun, those color blasts. They still are.
And they still work. I mean, that's what's crazy, right? Like,
as long as you don't want to make white.
Yeah, as long as you don't want to make white, right? Or
right.
have any efficiency since they don't plug.
Well, right.
Little micro things. Brendan, how about you? Do you want to?
Yeah, I think good points made before, and it's a lot different now than it was 10 plus years ago when this was a much different game. The technology wasn't there, both in terms of color, dimming curve, having to worry if it was going to flicker on camera, all those other things. I mean, we're really lucky in terms of, in general, the high quality selection of whites that we have. And to echo what Christien was saying, I mean, it kind of stresses me out now. I got to pick gel. Feels so final that I'm locked into it. If we're on camera and we know the color space we're in, we know what our color temperature is. It's not 60 million colors. It's probably 12 on a good day.
Sure.
Actually read differently and all of that, or 7. So it's and then having the ability to nudge a little bit. But I mean, thankfully the workflow of cameras and shaders and all of that has evolved too. And we are able to get some colors on a screen that we couldn't get a while ago. And every event's on screen now, even before the situation that we're in right now. Even if it wasn't broadcast to 1 million people, it's IMAG, it was streamed someplace. So it's got to look good there. So
sure. To John, there's a comment here from John to Kluku. I don't know. I'm not sure if I said that right. I'm not complaining about color blasts. I love the color blasts, but I have to say I love the PAR 64 also. There's nothing like a PAR 64.
Like a 1K PAR 64.
Nothing like a 1K PAR 64.
Yeah, the color blast changed our world.
It doesn't.
That was a while ago.
Okay, so we're gonna turning the page again. We're gonna turn the page to talk about what's happening right now. Kevin, what were you doing when you were told to shut everything down?
I had been at a load-in for a morning, and we had riggers had come in a couple hours before lighting, so we had all the truss in, and we had gotten 3 trusses hung, and it was about lunch, and the TD came in and gathered everyone around and told us we're going to take it all down and put it in the truck after lunch. So my electrician and I went and got some lunch and a beer and
And a shot for $4 extra.
Yeah, we were in Phoenix at the time, so it was during spring training in baseball, and so we went and saw a spring training game that night and got on a plane the next morning.
Did you think you'd be still in this situation? Were you one of the people who thought we'd be back quickly?
I didn't know. I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
Certainly at that time, I had no idea. I figured by late summer, absolutely. I mean, and that was sort of the first. When shows started canceling in the spring, that was where they were pushing, August, September, so it sort of transitioned from, delays to massive delays to cancellation. And my level of, the reality that came along with that, followed that same curve. It's been a while.
Yeah.
We're starting to get some signs of life, at least. I actually am going on a gig next week, so I'm happy about
Great. Christian, how about you? Where were you when?
I think I was at the office. We had maybe a week or two earlier had just finished a very long and fantastic project for Verizon in Miami during the Super Bowl, and then we were in pre-production for some of the bigger shows that we have coming up. We were pre-production for a 20,000 person show for Napa Auto Parts in Vegas, and that got postponed, and then something else got postponed, and then Women in the World at Lincoln Center got canceled, and then the list kind of went on and on and on. I mean, luckily we weren't on site in the middle of anything. We were just in pre-production for quite a bit, and the last thing we had done with Verizon, they actually paid in full, and that was in the clear. So it was just a lot of cancellations, a lot of postponements, but I did think it was coming. I did sort of have that feeling that it was coming right back, like, oh, it's going to be 6 months, and or 3 months, or we're going to, and we'll just push it. We'll just push it a few months, and it'll be back.
Yeah. That's what I thought too. Brendan, where were you?
Yeah, kind of two-part, I guess. Yeah, so the last gig was March 5th here in New York, and we were doing like a all-day corporate summit thing, and there was kind of some chatter later in the day because one of the people on the crew had been at an event in Washington, D.C. There had been some reports, and there was a murmur, but nobody really knew what this thing was at that point. But there was a little bit of concern, and then we were back in the studio the next week, getting ready for what was our big spring run of events, and there was that Thursday where just the wheels came off. After the NBA canceled their season, I think Tom Hanks announced he had thing. It was just like that Thursday, my calendar just went boom, 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 boom.
I remember that Thursday very well.
And I mean, there have been a couple things before that, but that was the Band-Aid, getting rid of, as it were. And I was definitely thinking not before Labor Day, and maybe we'll see something before the end of the year at that time. But I'm a little more fortified at this point. That was also less of a concern for me because our summer is typically is our quieter. So I was like, okay, so we lost the spring, but maybe we get some of the fall back, which is actually not exactly happening. But yeah.
So Brendan, when did you start making alternate plans, like business personal plans? What
Good question.
The answer could be still.
I'm fortunate that we've had some financial security and all that as well. I mean, my wife works at the Metropolitan Opera, so obviously that's not exactly happening either. So it's a bit of
big announcement. Yeah,
big announcement from them about the next season, or the lack thereof. I don't know. I'm diving into. I think we're going to get to maybe some of this a little later, but diving into some other related things and just trying to bide my time. I think as has been this corporate communication is still happening. That machine is still turning. People have to get the message out, and that's starting to move from Zoom calls and things like this to a little more production value. So biding my time and trying to get some new skill development at the same time.
Christien, how about you?
I will. I'm happy to say that there's 50% of our work, and this has always been the case, that's been on the other side of the world in the architectural world, designing lighting for permanent structures, both interior and exterior architectural design, and that has continued. So that has been a real saving grace for me, and it's allowed me to really focus on something and not find myself, twiddling my thumbs at the office trying to figure out what to do. I also developed a new lighting product made specifically for Zoom calls that I'm being lit with right now. It's called CameraReadyLighting.com. And I know it's a gentle plug, but in talking with other people about what they were doing for COVID, some people said they were baking bread, and I said, I think my baking bread was that I developed a new lighting product. So that was also part of it, is I was able to spend some time on some things that maybe I otherwise wouldn't have been able to do, and it's actually been a real success. But like we've been talking about earlier, the live events work was 50% of our work, and I anticipate that to continue to be the case, and really look forward to it. I like sitting at my desk, but really not as much as going on site. And collaborating. We have been doing collaboration has been happening with our architects and engineers and on the architectural work, but very much online, very much in Zoom calls. Sometimes I think maybe those are more efficient than some of the meetings in-person meetings that we've been doing. The screen sharing and the seeing the drawings all from the same perspective, and I've been very impressed with the efficiency of it, and they've been great about having weekly meetings, as opposed to just sort of letting big amounts of time pass, which is something I think we might learn in the production world too, that maybe it's good to have some more meetings, but maybe they're shorter and more efficient.
Shorter and more efficient.
You're right. So it's been interesting. It's been a mix of what the hell's going on, and I also own equipment. I sit in my office and I look at a large amount of equipment sitting there doing absolutely nothing.
Soon enough. Kevin, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I was going to say the only thing I would add is that the psychological dynamic of being I haven't been home this much in 20 years, and often I will spend more than 200 days of the year on the road, and so in some ways it's been good. I've gotten to spend a lot of time with my wife. She hasn't kicked me out yet, so that's good. And so we've enjoyed the time we've had together. But obviously there are financial considerations and all the rest of it. And it would be nice to get back to work.
Be nice to get back to work. I know, steadily. Agreed.
So we have a question from Andrew Coiter. Is it any relation, Jeff?
There is relation. My brother, Andrew.
Okay. Oh, it's a long one. I'll read it. It says, we've all been inside and some have been by themselves for many months. What do you think will be the response from the art community in New York City when we are open for business 100%? Artists have most likely had plenty of time to work on dream projects or had time to be creative in ways they might not have ever before. Do you think there will be a boom in attention to this art, specifically for the Broadway industry? Do you think there might have been some good plays and musicals written, I think it's while in quarantine?
Interesting. Yeah.
So, Christien, what do you think? Do you think that, or have you personally been working on?
Are you writing a Broadway show?
Yeah.
Well, no, but all right. So, I am working on a short film.
Cool.
Okay.
So we'll see. I'm not gonna go any further than that, but I am working on a short film. The topic is light, and it is a documentary. So we'll see where that goes. So
would that have been in your? Would you have even any time to work on that?
No, not at all. right? And so this was another one of those things where I was like, okay, here I am. I've got time, and like some of the other technologies we're talking about, a $30 app on my iPhone made my iPhone into, what was a $5,000 prosumer video camera. It's the footage is gorgeous. And so I'm excited to see where that goes, but I'll keep that for later.
Okay.
So yes, I believe the answer is yes.
I believe the answer is yes, and we'll have to have you back on here to talk about the movie anytime you want to do that. Because
Okay.
it's cool. Kevin, how about you? Are you writing a show?
Am I? No, I'm not working on a short film. It was funny. I actually read an article somewhere in the middle of this. I'm going to say probably around June or July, where book publishers were starting to reject people's COVID books en masse.
Yeah.
Non-established authors, because stuck home for a little bit is trying to write a book. But no, I think that people will be starved for art and performance and shared experience and all the rest of that. And when it is safe and we open back up, I think people will come. I think they'll be excited.
Brandon, anything you want to add? Kevin, did you want to say something else? I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. Yep.
Yeah, I think I hope there's all sorts of great stuff brewing around. And I was just actually riding in park today, and there was a jazz band with the singer in the corner. I mean, you can't walk outside on a nice day in New York without like a jazz band someplace or some kind of music happening, because I think there's too many artists and creatives who are just trying to do something with their talent and remember what it's like to play with other people, and hey, just keep their chops up and all that. And so I think that's just one small example of what we're going to see out of this. I mean, sadly, adversity can create really great art. So if this is any indication, we're going to do great art. So
there certainly is adversity, so there might be.
I think there'll be a very tiny window, though, for one-person shows about the quarantine.
Right.
You don't have to wait for that. If you have a one-person show about the quarantine, you can do it now.
I can ignore it right now.
Yeah.
Right.
Ready to go. Speaking of which, segue, a lot of production and producing companies have turned to online programming. Where does the designer, the lighting designer specifically, or designer at all, fit into the online programming? Kevin, I think you had something to say about this before. Do we have a role? Like, what does that mean for the lighting designer when people are doing Zoom theater or Zoom presentations?
Well, they still need lights. They still need advisement. They need to be lit. And so I think in whatever this continuing developing world of virtual performance and whatnot, we'll still be able to find places to be involved in it.
Brendan?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, and as I think what Kevin's saying too, the quality of that production will continue to increase as people get a little tired of just this and want some slightly higher production values, which will need lights and need things. And then I think there's some really exciting stuff happening or just around the bend in the world of true virtual production. Sort of completely artificial environments, and there's some really neat tools now that are getting out there where we can use the actual lighting control and knowledge to create in that environment. That's one of the things I'm banging my head against in the corner. So yeah.
Christian, did you answer this one already?
I mean, it sort of. I mean, there's part of it is buy the lights and you'll buy my lights and you'll look good. The other part is
right. Yeah.
Right. But the other part is that I mean, there's still, to Kevin's point, there's still the advisement role, and also like some of the remotes are more than just a speaker at a screen like this. Some of the remotes are a full setup of of someone coming on stage, and you'll need the ballyhoo and you'll need even if there's no audience. It's there's cameras, and we'll probably still be in the room making it look great so that it's being broadcast out and look fantastic.
I mean, I've done a couple of like Zoom readings where you put bunch of actors before the thing starts on a screen, and I say, well, can you turn away from the
Oh, okay.
window, or bring the lamp closer to your face, or maybe you move away from the wall. I mean, it's it's just someone has to do these things.
Yeah.
It's not exactly what I signed up for, but it's something. It's making my brain work.
That's right.
Work aside, Christien, let's go to you. What have you been doing during the pandemic? Is there anything you've ignored that you're finally getting to or want to get to? Cooking something you've never cooked before? New hobbies, chopping trees down, anything that surprised you, or personal revelations, Christien?
Yeah, I think my wife and I have a lot more time together, which has been really wonderful. We spend the morning on a short walk, just reflecting on the day previous and the day to come with our dog. We try to bring something to the community fridge every day so that we are, sharing with what we can with everyone who, there's always someone waiting at the community fridge for food. So we feel like if we can bring something every day, we do. So that's been the biggest thing. All the other is just trying to keep my brain fresh and busy and making a little bit of money at least to keep it going. But it's been really amazing to sort of rethink without travel. Right. This is like Kevin said, like without the travel, to be able to wake up every morning at the same time and go out with my wife before she goes to work and before I go to work, like it has been a real breath of fresh air.
It has been different, I will say, and not working until midnight all the time. It's been, Kevin, how about you?
That's mostly it, is actually establishing a home life, which I have not had an opportunity to. I moved, my wife and I moved to Michigan, just north of Detroit, about 5 years ago. And so we have spent time this summer, seeing parks and places that we had not, that we didn't realize were so close. And that we got an opportunity to get out into nature around here, and that was great. And next to that, I love to cook and drink and all that fun stuff. I didn't get into the bread thing. Like I thought the bread thing was too extreme. Like, but
I did make bread.
You did?
I make sourdough, but
sourdough's great.
Yeah,
I should. We have time.
Part of it was we couldn't find yeast at the beginning too. Like toilet paper, we got all the rest of that. Yeast was gone.
Yeah, flour was hard to find.
Yeah,
yeast flour, hair dye. I don't know, but hair dye was at a certain point. Hair dye. I think first it was toilet paper, then it was yeast and hair dye.
Interesting list.
And chicken. Sorry, Brendan. How about you?
We do have a sourdough starter. No, it's just my wife is the baker. Although we were very late to the bread game, we just got into that. But we have any cheating. I can't bake anything. I mean, the amazing thing of actually not working 16 to whatever hour days all the time, and what you can do when you can sleep and eat well, and there's not dessert served at lunch every day is kind of amazing. So really true. Myself into riding a bike because as some people know, I've been doing that on and off for a while, and that was a big way for me to gain sanity as a way to deal with all of this. So starting in March, riding indoors, and then once things in New York kind of improved, getting out there. But that's been good, just as both a physical and a mental thing. I've been able to create some positive personal habits that now I'm well, how do I keep this going? Because I like the way this feels, and I just want to go back to the same. So I think that'll be a good problem to have. Hopefully when we get there. And then I have a now 2.5-month-old son. So just having
congratulations
the ability, thank you, to spend this much. I mean, he's a totally different little human being than he was in March. So to have spent that much time with him is just really silver lining to this whole.
That is a huge silver lining. Otherwise, you wouldn't have that.
Yeah, otherwise I would have missed the spring. And
sure.
Miss the fall, So and being able to just be more of a partner in that regard as well. So
well, that is nice.
I was gonna say, and also just the being able to do these kind of things and being able to also gather with friends we haven't talked to for. I mean, it's stupid. Like we have people who, we've missed and love and want to talk to, and we didn't do it up until the point where everybody was, shut down. And then, we've had Zoom calls and all the rest of that with friends and family and whatnot. That's just doesn't happen in our normal lives. So
it's true. Yeah. And it has been nice on the one hand, and on the other hand, I want to now start seeing people face to face. And Zoom has been great. I'm ready for a little more personal contact.
Yeah.
Well, I brought this up, so we made use from potato water. So,
and also adding to the people who have done that, John Farber said he cleans his tubs. So everyone's got, everyone's got
about the multiple tubs.
I clean my tubs.
John's sideways in this picture. Thanks for watching, John.
John, I finally painted my apartment.
We're, over time, we don't have Mike Farmer producing this week to keep texting me that we're running over. We're running over. So, Drew, was there something that you wanted to bring in from?
Yeah, I mean, Michael Sharon. I think this is kind of a good closing. Being used to working in a collaborative industry, how are you dealing with the isolation of working alone at home?
2-word answer. No, I'm kidding. Kevin, let's start with you.
Well, A, I'm not alone, so that helps. And then, B, it's things like this. We do a weekly call with UVLD where we mostly don't talk about work, it's a good thing. So yeah, that's how you do it. Is you just try to remain as in contact as you can with as many people as you can.
Brendan.
Hi, Michael. Just wanted to, no, it's speaking of great collaborators and all that, I've had the fortune to work with Michael a couple times in the past. It's hard because as the social aspects, I think we've all found ways to scratch that itch, but the actual professional collaborative itch is a little more challenging as I've been trying to do some R&D, like I said, learn some new stuff, dive into this virtual production gold rush and all of that. Is I realize what I miss and what makes me learn is doing it with other people and having the people to bounce those ideas off of. I found this thing about it. Oh, and that's where I'm really starting to miss that creating with other people thing.
Mm-hmm. Christian, anything to add to that?
No, I think it's spot on. I mean, I think the Zoom collaboration is fine. It's not the same. There is something about going to the bar afterwards, although I probably am trying to do it less, but right. But there is something about the going, sort of recounting the long, awesome day, over a cocktail and then getting it done again the next day.
Yeah. Well, one more question, because this is, my favorite one, not my favorite one. That's not fair. I don't have a favorite question, but this is a lot of other people's favorite ones. What advice do you have for young people who want to do what you do? Brendan, let's go back to you here.
Yeah, it's a great question. And why I say just get exposure to as many different things as possible. And whether that's aspects of the business, lighting, different disciplines, dance, concerts, whatever, or just life experience, right? Like travel. You want to be a good assistant, have something to talk about. The more you know about the world of life will serve you in everything. So,
yeah, Christian,
say yes. That's kind of the whole.
That's great. Yeah, I love it. Say yes. That's great. That's great advice. Or don't say no, but say yes. Don't say try.
Right.
Just, Yoda said that. Yeah. Sorry, Christian. Anything else? Was that it?
No, that's it. I mean, I think that has lots of meaning. You can figure it, like you can sort of figure it out for yourself. But at the end of the day, like you can always figure out what it was you said yes to and how you're going to deal with it. But saying yes is a much easier way to go about it than saying no or I don't know or
Yeah. And figure it out. I mean, I had an assistant who's now a designer, Grant Yeager, who years later just told me that he consistently just said yes, even though he had no idea. I'm like, yeah, I can do that. And then, just figured out how to do it before I knew that he didn't do it. And I showed up and everything was great because, it's just not having the fear, I think. It's or having the confidence to know that you can actually
That's right.
do it. Trust yourself.
Yeah. You can always call a friend.
Mm-hmm. You can always call a friend. Kevin?
Yeah. Hi. Well, good Lord, haven't they noticed that we're all unemployed? Why would they want to get in this business?
Right.
There's the whole thing.
Don't tell them. Quiet.
But all right, let's assume that we're all going to go back to work at some point. I think that I think that obviously saying yes to everything that you can say yes to, and having some life experience outside of working, outside of gigging, something else to talk about that is not what you just did for 14 hours is helpful. So, and you just want to be as enjoyable person to be around as you can.
Perfect.
That's also important, Kevin.
Yeah, for
you
sure.
want to be an enjoyable person.
For sure.
And it's hard with the stress that we never have time. Like what we do, there's everyone, everyone's always waiting for us to be done, and half the time they don't really care. I'm exaggerating, but it's hard to be the nicest person in the room.
Right. Easy to be miserable, but it's much better for you and everyone around you.
Right. Be the one in the room that people want to approach and talk to.
Yeah.
That's good advice. Drew, you just brought something up on the screen.
I was just saying that's trust yourself and call a friend. Good advice, or look it up on YouTube. So
From Ed Hoffman. Ed Hoffman, Christien and I went to college with. I think I lived with Ed Hoffman for a semester or two at SUNY Purchase back in the day. So
nice.
Years ago. If it's the same Ed Hoffman. Gosh, we've come to the end of our program. Do any of you have anything you would like to add, retract, or clarify before we let everyone go to dinner?
I'm sad we didn't get to politics, Drew.
Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother show.
Yeah,
That was a whole other show. If Paule Constable were on, she said she wanted to talk about British politics. And
Of course.
That's where we wanted to go.
Yeah. I think we might rival you.
They just figured out. They just figured out that they messed up with Brexit. So
they just figured out, exactly. Ed Hoffman says yes, it is me. So hi, Ed.
Oh, cool.
Okay. Thank you all so much.
Yeah.
You guys are amazing. And I wish we all can do this in person. And we say this every week that we're going to have everyone back on for a little quick 15-minute follow-up when everything is back running again, when we're all really busy. That date just keeps moving farther and farther away. But it's going to happen, and we'll all be back, and we'll all meet right here again and just say hi. So
Sounds great.
Look forward to that.
Awesome.
yeah, thanks everybody, and we will see you next week. Bye, everybody.
Thanks all. Bye now.
Bye, everyone.